Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. I'm Kyle Bryant. And I'm Sean Bombsark. Together, we are constantly seeking opportunities to live beyond our circumstances. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We're glad you're here. My name is Sean. Kyle's on the other side. Kyle, what's going on today?
What is up, everybody? Sean, today we are going to start off with a few of our rapid-fire questions like we did in episode 50. I hope you are ready.
Boy, am I ever. I stretched this morning and everything.
You did some voice warm-ups and stuff.
Yeah. How now, Brown? I'm ready to go.
All right, let's do it. All right.
Okay.
So, my first question, sweet or salty?
Salty.
All right, that was an easy one, man. Mm-hmm. Traveling for a weekend or staying at home for a weekend?
Staying at home.
Nice. All right, cycling versus hiking?
Cycling.
Ooh. All right, Starbucks versus Pete's?
No, Starbucks.
Starbucks every time. All right, the last one, Tupac versus Biggie?
What? I got those desserts or like...
Wait, are you saying it?
I'm going to go with Tupac simply because I know that name more than I know Biggie. So...
Biggie. Can't
I mean, I've heard of both of them, but neither.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Show us how.
All right. Those are your 5. That's cool. But before I throw you mine, what's yours, Tupac or Biggie?
I think I go Tupac because he's West Coast and Biggie's East Coast. Because I lived on the West Coast when I was that age when Tupac was around.
So you're saying West Coast is the West Coast again?
Dang there it! I keep getting it. I need to stop bringing that up and just avoid.
He said it himself. All right, my turn. 5 questions for Kyle. Rapid fire again. No explanation. Kyle, when it comes to wine, red or white?
Red.
If you have the choice to hang at a lake or a river all day, which would you choose? Lake or river?
Lake.
All right. Car or truck?
Truck.
Okay. When traveling, window seat or aisle seat?
Window, so I can lean up and fall asleep.
No explanation. Get out.
Oh, sorry.
All right, when it comes to meeting a deadline, like, say, for instance, your book, are you going to stay up all night to get it done or wake up early to get it done? That's
a good question. I think stay up all night.
Okay,
well,
same here.
Stay up late anyway.
I'm not a morning person.
Yeah.
Cool. I'd stay up all night, too.
Yeah, I just can't get motivated that early. I'm just like, I want to go back to bed.
Awesome. All right, well, that's all 5.
Nice. All right, good stuff. So, Sean, what are we talking about today in the actual, meat of the episode?
Well, I think today what we want to spend our time on is talking about the transitions that come with disability. You know, especially in our case, our disability is progressive, so it doesn't all just happen overnight. It takes time to adjust to little things that deteriorate or get jeopardized over time. So we're going to talk about transitioning into a walker or a cane or a wheelchair or hand controls or whatever comes with that mess or that lifestyle. And Kyle, I know obviously a lot of our listeners probably know you've transitioned a whole lot more than I have. So I am hoping you're going to carry this conversation and talk from your own experience about some of the stuff you've had to go through and the adjustments you've needed to make in order for life to work for you.
Man, the pressure's on. Yeah, no, happy to. And, I think you're right, Sean. And I think the biggest thing when we're talking about transitions, obviously with a progressive degenerative disease, is just the mental toll it takes. Like, what is going to happen in the future? Where am I going to be in 5 years, in 10 years? And like, all right, I'm struggling right now. What? Not me, but I'm just saying, you're thinking this, right? All right, I'm struggling to stay on my feet right now. I really don't want to go into a wheelchair because I perceive in my mind that it's going to totally limit me and like take away all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so you have to balance that. I feel like with, all right, if I'm on my feet, is it worth being on my feet until I break my ankle or like do something terrible? If I'm on my feet for another 6 months, is that valuable? Like, is that 6 months valuable? And, the same thing goes with hand controls, for example. For me, I drive with my hands now. And the more I drive with my hands, the more I think it's weird that people drive with their feet.
Well, when you say you drive with your hands, hopefully most of us drive with our hands. You mean exclusively with your hands, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the gas and brake is in my left hand on a little lever, and my wheel has a spinner knob on it, so I can spin the wheel all the way around with one hand. And go ahead.
Say true story, just for the sake of it. I had a great aunt who was born without arms. She, great aunt, so a little bit older. Like when she was a kid, she was on what was the big talk show back in the day? Like when our parents were kids.
Oh, like Donahue or something?
No, like pre-David Letterman. Who was the big time?
Johnny Carson.
Johnny Carson. She was on the Johnny Carson show once as a child.
Wow.
Because she had no arms. Anyway, she drove with her feet.
Wow, that's
like when
cool.
I knew her as an adult or a young adult, she literally had become, she did everything with her feet. Cooked in the kitchen, did life, everything with her feet. So she actually drove with her feet only.
So you were around and you witnessed, like were you riding in the back seat of her car when she was like driving around with using her feet?
I don't know that I ever drove with her, but I remember when we moved to a new city, on my 13th birthday, we celebrated my 13th birthday at her house because we had just moved to the same town she lived in.
That's amazing.
Like I knew her, I was around her, but I don't know that I ever drove with her.
Right, okay. Dude, so on that subject though, when our film, The Ataxian, when it was like going through film festivals, there was a film that I saw that was like sort of in the same like disability kind of realm, and it was a film about a girl who was a pilot, and she didn't have any arms, so she flew a plane with her feet, dude, and it sounded pretty cool. I forget what it's called. I need to watch it, I think, because I think it got a lot of awards at festivals and stuff. But anyway, so all right. So I guess maybe controlling a car with any part of your body is not weird. Like, right? It just like gets you from point A to point B.
I don't know if I'd say any part of the body, but I mean, yeah, your main limbs, feet or legs, hands are, that's normal.
I don't get it. But anyway, so when I was transitioning from, I feel like the transition for me, the transition to hand controls was a lot harder. I felt like
harder, like
like mentally, I had a friend who was using a wheelchair. His name's Matt Fritch, and we interviewed him actually on the podcast. I forget, like episode 9 or something, real early. And he was using a wheelchair, and he was like my mentor. And I really he's a cool dude. I really look up to Matt. And at that time, like, he actually let me borrow one of his old wheelchairs for like a few weeks and like just kind of test it out, go out with it and whatever. So that transition for me wasn't as crazy. And when I borrowed the chair from Matt and I finally sat down, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much more comfortable. I can save energy. I can actually look at people in the eye and shake their hand without like being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall over. All right, I'm going to stand over here by this wall so I can lean if I need to. Or like, every time you go into a room, and I'm sure you experience this too, right? Every time you go into a room, you're like looking around for like things to grab onto, or if I fall, I'm falling right there. Like,
you gotta kind of plan your steps a little bit more cautiously.
So that was my transition to a wheelchair. But for the hand controls, like, I was driving with my feet, and like with FA, as you know, one of the main things is proprioception. And that's what it's called anyway. But basically knowing where your arms and legs are in space without looking. And, with driving, like, you can't see your feet, right?
Yep.
And so I missed the brake pedal a couple of times that were a little scary. They didn't involve anyone else, and I didn't get hurt or crash or anything. But I was like, you know what? It's only a matter of time before it does involve someone else. Sure. And I do get hurt, so I better do this, But it was a really tough thing, like, all right, if I go for another 2 weeks, that could be me having another 2 weeks of driving with my feet, which, what's the value of that, right? Or it could mean getting in an accident, like killing somebody. Like,
sure.
So, it was a tough transition just because it was one of those times where it was a checkpoint where I was like, all right, FA is progressing, and there's, at the very moment, there's nothing I can do about it. And so I have to give in, or I don't know if I'd call it giving in, but I have to modify my behavior and the things I do in this case. Sure. And so that was really hard. But in the end, it was, a logically, like, simple decision, But
if you can look at it logically, yeah. But I think one thing you touch on here is the emotional turmoil you face when you know that there's something going on with your body that's going to make life different or difficult. That could be a really hard decision. If we can always look at everything logically, I think life would be easy. But for the most part, there's always the emotion or heart involved, and those sorts of decisions can be really difficult.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and even like the immediacy of the decision to get hand controls, like, excuse me, all of a sudden I have to ask for a ride to work from a friend, and like for a couple weeks until they get installed, and I have to like depend on other people, and I really have to like swallow my pride and be like, all right, this needs to be an objective thing and get through this,
I think that certainly would take a certain level of determination. When you know you're losing an ability or you have lost an ability, to think, okay, hand controls are way different than foot controls.
Yeah.
To put up with that whole process of learning something new and spending time practicing in an empty field or wherever you practice.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be easy to say, oh, never mind, this is too hard. I think about my great aunt. Maybe it was easier for her because she was born without arms, so she never knew life with arms. So it just took maybe a little bit different level of determination to figure out how to do life with their feet. For somebody that is losing what they once had, I imagine that's a much harder transition.
Yeah, and in those things, when we're thinking about that, I always think to myself, like, there's no value in determining which is harder. Like, both are difficult. Both are pretty awesome to navigate. Like, so let's just decide that both things are great, right? And just getting along and like doing your thing, that just no matter what, it's awesome. So yeah.
And I mean, one thing I was thinking about when you were talking a few minutes ago, it's nobody can make that decision for you. I think you've got to be comfortable making a decision to transition into a wheelchair or transition into hand controls, and not worry about what other people are going to think or believe about you. Their perception really shouldn't matter. If it's more comfortable for you, or if it's less dangerous for you to transition, then I think that's okay. Nobody can tell you when the time is.
Yeah.
Unless something goes terribly wrong, then maybe the DMV will tell you, okay, you can't drive anymore.
Oh yeah, right.
But for the most part, there's no reason to wait for you to break an ankle. If you think it's going to be, I go back to Kyle. You've said it before. You've talked about it. When you transitioned into a wheelchair years ago, you immediately found life to be a lot easier. You weren't as fatigued. You had a little more energy to get through the day. And now people automatically know something's wrong. They don't assume you're drunk. So, of course, it was easier to get through the mall or the airport or wherever you... Do you even go to the mall?
No. Okay. But
you get the point.
Going out and, like, going to a bar, holy cow. Like, I literally got thrown out of a bar before because they're like, oh, you're way too drunk. I'm like, no, dude, like, I just have this thing that makes me not be able to stand up. But and they're like, yeah, it's called alcohol. I'm like, you don't get it. But anyway, no, I agree. And like at that time, for example, sorry to jump around here, but I was using a cane. And for me, I didn't feel like the cane really helped me stand very well, but it alerted people that something was actually up, and it wasn't like I just had too many drinks,
Sure.
So
yeah, I would agree with that because I have one. I don't use it often, but I certainly make it a point to use it in big crowds.
Yeah. So people are aware. Yeah.
Yep.
So
exactly.
Sean, a big transition I know for you recently was from an upright bike to a trike. And can you tell us about that? Like, how was that mentally? And partly, I know it was awesome.
I think you make a good point. Part of what prompted the transition for me was injury. I love riding, and I love being on my upright. And it got to a point where, for the most part, I've said it in the movie, and I've said it before. I feel like I'm okay with the prognosis of FA, but I'm going to do everything I can right now while I still have the ability. So, of course, the hiking, the riding, and the running. Well, part of my mentality is the longer I can do it, maybe the longer I will stave off the need for transition or the progression.
Yeah.
So for me, it was part of the mentality of I'm going to ride my upright as long as I can, even though it's kind of risky and, I'm wobbly and I can't really look behind me to change lanes or to turn. Well, I had gone out a couple times in 1 year, and I fell off my bike twice. And I fell off my bike when I was like stopping. Like there was no good reason to fall except that I have FA and I lost my balance in the process of dismounting from the bike. And the last time I fell, I actually fractured my wrist in 2 places.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
You don't remember that? Yeah, I was on the bike trail. I had stopped to get off and take a rest and I think take a picture or something on the river trail.
And selfie, as I was maybe?
Yeah, probably. As I was getting off, I fell over and I put my hands down and I busted up my wrist. But in the moment, it was just bad, just painful. So I went on for like a week without seeing a doctor.
Wow.
Whoops. So anyway, of course, knowing that pain and dealing with the fracture for a couple weeks or a month or whatever it was, I got timid around the bike. I didn't want to go out and ride anymore because I knew it was more dangerous than it was fun.
Right.
So I had backed way off from riding because I didn't want to face that sort of pain again. And one day, you and Mark called and helped make the transition possible and easier by saying, hey, let's make a bike available for you. So there were factors that helped make that transition a reality, but at the same time, it was a difficult one because I was committed to keeping my ability or my freedom of riding an upright as long as I could.
Right. Until
I went and busted up some bones.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and, first thing is we want to recognize Catch Hike because they have been an amazing partner in keeping both of us going and rolling. And a lot of our friends in the FA community, they're just an amazing company. And Mark Eglin's an amazing guy, and we're really appreciative of Catch Hike.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
The next thing I wanted to say was that, I feel like earlier I was sort of devaluing the concept of staying on your feet or pushing off transitions as long as possible. And I think that, so I feel like I really devalued it, but I do see extreme value in that. I just think it's a really tough balance, right? And so anyway, sorry, I just wanted to kind of point that out.
No, I think it's good. Real quick, what about, a lot of our friends are younger, and we've seen some of our friends transition into a wheelchair, or maybe even some friends go off to college and be independent. Do you have any thoughts or maybe encouraging words that might help somebody be comfortable with taking on such a challenge, such as moving away from home, leaving your comfort zone, and having to build your own independent life at a college or a dorm or a new job, a new city?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was still on my feet. I was still pretty independent when I went to college, but there was still that, what if I can't walk in 2 years, and then all of a sudden, my junior year of college, I got to figure everything else out, So there was that unknown, and so my thought, though, for people who are approaching that is that, and I see people doing it all the time too, is that you just got to figure it out. I mean, it's not a yes or no thing. It's not a go or no go thing. It's all right, stuff is different. We got to figure out, we got to put the stuff in place to make sure I can be successful, Sure. Maybe it's a matter of maybe I'd choose a school that's not as far away and my parents can come once a week and help me with a few things, or get in touch with the disability office at the college and make sure you have all the accommodations you need to get to class, to take notes, and just everything to be successful. But I think the bottom line is that it's not a go, no-go thing. It's just you got to figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's that level of determination that says, this is what I want to do. Now let's find a way to make it work.
Exactly.
Because the end goal can still be accomplished. You just might have to get there a different route than maybe what you thought 10, 5, 20. I don't know why I go backwards on my numbers like that.
Yeah.
5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, that was weird, but understand.
You get the point. I think I get dyslexic when the microphone is on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand that. A little yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So, what else, Sean, about transitions?
I think, well, again, I haven't gone through a whole lot, so I definitely don't feel like I have any great advice or experience to speak from. But what I think would be important and valuable for our friends and listeners to hear is that point you just made. It's not about giving up anything important to you in life. It's about figuring out how to get it in the midst of being different or in the midst of dealing with disability. It's not a go or no-go thing. It's a go and figure out how to get there. Yep. It may be different, and that is certainly okay. And in this whole conversation, what I'm reminded of is a quote from Scott Hamilton. And he says, the only disability in life is a bad attitude. And maybe other people have said it too, but he's the one that comes to mind for me. It's not about not being able to walk. It's not about people thinking you're drunk. It's not about not having arms. It's not about being blind. It's about the attitude that you have facing whatever it is in your life. If you have the right attitude, you can do anything. Look at the Paralympics. Look at Helen Keller. Look at any of those things you want. And be encouraged in the steps that those folks took to make an amazing life for themselves.
Yes, I love that. And Sean, you know what? With those words, I think we're going to wrap this episode up. I think you did a really good job of recapping the episode. So we want to thank everyone for listening, and go ahead and find us online and comment on this episode. If you have your own comments about transitions and you want to add to the conversation. So thanks so much for listening today.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
Find us online at twodisableddudes.com and please subscribe on the iTunes. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Special thanks to our production team, Jake Tompkins and Matt LaFleur.
Until next time, keep living with urgency.